One ringy-dingy, two ringy-dingies. Hello, Your Influence. How come you weren't around? Were you late turning your thing on, or did I goof it up?
I don't know who goofed it up, but I wasn't showing you as online.
No, I'm online.
No, but when I tried to call you, you weren't showing as online.
Oh, well, I don't know what time. I've been online for, I'd say, 30 minutes to an hour. So anyway, let's not worry about that. By the way, I've stopped the attack on the Charles de Gaulle, so now all we have to do is get a letter of marque and reprisal. And I think I want to be corrected by whoever knows I'm misspeaking, if I'm misspeaking. In today's news, less than 3 hours ago, a Texas legislator named McCall, M-C-C-A-U-L, has pointed the finger directly at Hillary and Obama for being the source of ISIS. And if that's not enough to frost your cookies, I don't know what is, especially since 3 of our senior Abel Danger agents are going to be down in Texas next week. And I can't reveal the name of the 3 agents other than myself, Bucky Badger, and Agent RPM. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having a face-to-face meeting with the current owners of the ranch, and we are going to be introduced to some people that will support us with good programs. And if and when the funding comes, we'll just buy the ranch, and then we'll install our own program, which will be inviting global veterans to Texas to share some peace and mutual respect instead of munitions that only enrich. Oh, I almost forgot to put on my disguise. Scotland Yard has been looking for me, but fortunately they've been looking in Scotland, not Farnborough. Oh, I'm sorry. I was in more disguise than I intended. I want my badge number, which I've committed to memory. You'd be amazed at what it says on this police office. PC. Yes, I'm the only Bobby in Plum City, and that's just plum dandy. Enough of my gibberish. Oh, thank you, Agent 66. You're Johnny on the spot. Or in this case, Jill on the spot. That's the legislator right there who said Hillary and Obama created ISIS. So what I'm going to do to support him is, first of all, I stuck him as the number. Agent 66, would you tell me where he is on today's show? Is he 2 or 3 images down? He's in the top 5, I'm sure. I respect legislators that go in harm's way and tell the truth. We have about 435 legislators. Maybe it's 535. I get mixed up. Maybe it's 435 Congress weasels and 100 bad senators, minus about 3. There's a senator in Maine and a senator in Massachusetts who are now aware of the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot because they've been clamoring for more digital safety via Wi-Fi, via the entertainment system of airliners, at least in the United States of America. And I would encourage Senators Collins of Maine, and I think it's Marque, it's M-A-R-K something, of Massachusetts. I would encourage them to continue our dialogue and broaden it to ensure aviation safety around the world. I'm sure Putin would like that, since somebody got his Metro jet on Halloween. And I think I put it in today's show that the UK, not the good people in UK, I'm going to have lunch. We're having a summit at the Gough Manor House pub, which is in Crawley, UK. I can't tell you for security reasons that it's on Horsham Road, but if I had more nerve, I'd say it's on Horsham Road. But I didn't actually say that, so if somebody has manipulated this tape and put words in my mouth, then I'll have to change hats here when David takes over. So there's been numerous attacks on the date of 9/11, going back to 1776. I'm doing this without referencing any notes. 1776, British Navy Admiral Howe suggested to George Washington, if you dopes just drop your arms, we'll be nice to you. George told Admiral Howe to take a hike. That occurred on 9/11, 1776. On 9/11, 1857, a bunch of phony baloney British agents posing as Mormons slaughtered a whole lot of people on a wagon train heading west. That brings us up to 9/11, 1864, when Sherman burned Atlanta. Then they took a little break from doing mean things to us, and I might be leaving one out here in this interim, but let's go forward to 9/11. They did something between 64, I said that one. We'll skip up to 9/11, 61. The Queen, who's currently the Queen, in fact my father was over here when she got crowned, and I'd like to crown her in a different way. But my father was here in 53 with the first 4 nuclear bombers at Bryce Norton. If anybody wants a Google pairing to prove that, I can give it to you when I come up for air. 1961, the Queen initiated the Queen's Own at William and Mary College on 9/11 of 61. That, my friends, is treason. 9/11. The next 9/11, I think, was the big one. No, it wasn't. The next 9/11 was 1990, when George H.W. Bush, who had the 1989 White House male prostitution issue to deal with, so when James Sabow pointed out that there were narco-trafficking events in and out of Marine Corps El Toro, where he and I were wingmen, they had to zap him in a hurry, so they zapped him on the 22nd of January of 1991. Let me say this very clearly. It was George H.W. Bush and Jeb Bush that authorized that hit on my wingman, James Sabow, and maybe you shouldn't have done that, and maybe you shouldn't be a bunch of gay pedophiles, but that's for another day. So we got the 1990 where G.H.W. Bush on 9/11 talks about 1,000 points of darkness. Then we come up to 9/11 on 2001, when the perverts that did 9/11, which include United States Senior Executive Service, the Crown Agents, Canada, in the persons of Maurice Burrill, Rick Findlay, Charles Bouchard, Angus Watt, Russell Williams, and a bonus name, Robert Marr, when they took an exercise and went live and rogue and attacked America, they made the mistake of killing my college classmate, Chick Burlingame. Payback's an MF. Would somebody please, in the chat room, tell non-Marines what MF stands for? And then, because I'm a man of few words, as David is cringing at learning, the last 9/11 that I'm aware of was when Benghazi occurred, and I think the most wonderful way to come up to speed on Benghazi is to Google Obama plus chorizo, CHORIZO, plus Benghazi, plus Reggie Love, plus cornhole, or if you want to go the female route, well, wait a minute, Obama is effeminate. If you want to go a more pungent female route, we could always go with Hillary, Vagina Gate, and Benghazi, or Hillary, Foul Taint, and Agent Chips. David, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Field, and this is getting very exciting because we have John Kerry negotiating unlawfully and treasonously with the North Vietnamese communist leaders in 1970 in Paris, and he's there now. And I don't know if those leaders are all dead, and Kerry should be dead, or should have been put in front of a firing squad for his treason in 1970, where he betrayed America and all of the people who died in Vietnam. But now he's in Paris negotiating an unbelievable attempt to keep the United States Navy in port by accusing its leaders of violating the carbon cap that is about to be published on the 11th of this month, i.e. what is today is Wednesday, so on Friday. Now that offers us a superb opportunity because we can prove, Phil, that is Abel Danger, not you, not me, but the collective crime scene investigation network in the cloud. We can prove that the Defense Red Switch network that was installed and had the most important terminal on Obambi's desk in 2009 was removed by parties unknown, at least parties unknown to the majority of Americans, except Abel Danger knows who removed it and where it went.
That's my warning.
It went to the Charles de Gaulle, the French ship nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, and effectively turned the Charles de Gaulle into the United States aircraft carrier badged by the French. That is to say, it is under the control of the French government, and sitting behind that, the old alliance between France and Scotland that was launched in 1495. So we got a nice thread there. Now, I've done a little research on Kerry, who we know is a traitor, if not just because of his negotiations as a civilian. I think he was a Navy reservist with the leaders of communist Vietnam, which violates some act, I can't remember the number and the name, and he should have been brought back. When he returned to the United States of America, he would have been, effectively, an unlawful belligerent. That is to say, he wasn't dressed in the uniform of the enemy, which presumably would be the Viet Cong uniform or whatever, and he has subsequently, since 1970, acted as an unlawful belligerent to bring the United States of America to its knees. Now, he's not enough of a man to do that successfully, I don't think. But in the 1990s, he became particularly powerful because he was the chairman of the Small Business Senate Committee, working with your sister, Marque, who was the chief operating officer of the Small Business Administration, with a $60 or $70 billion budget to insert 8A companies into the major defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Boeing, and at the appropriate moment, as in the attack on the USS Cole and 911, switch those protege companies to mentor companies where the Boeings and Lockheed Martins of the world were left sucking air. Anyway, cut a long story short, very simple solution for Abel Danger to lasting thanks, I believe, of the American people, is to apply formally through you and your congressman. Who's your congressman, Field? Over to you.
I have to think about that. Where am I from? Wisconsin? Yeah, Ron Kind, R-O-N-K-I-N-D. But I wouldn't work through him. I'd work through a senator, Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson and Charles Grassley need to do something. David, turn your microphone off. Go get some hot water. It's time for a prayer, and then we'll have 90 seconds. It's 22 minutes after, and we always pray at this point. Today's prayer is quite short, and therefore I'm going to fill up the rest of the prayer time by reading. Actually, maybe I won't. Maybe at the end of 90 seconds. David just turned his Skype off when he meant to turn his microphone off. So would one of you people that can function and focus tell him to call me back on Skype? If not, we'll do without him for a while. The prayer today is from Psalm 121:2, which is rather short. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth, and that's certainly true. And at 22 minutes past the hour, each time we have a show, we honor God and honor the memory of Colonel James E by taking 90 seconds and remaining silent. And when we come back from the silence, I'm going to read a very powerful message referencing God. 90 seconds, please. Okay, there was the 90 seconds plus about 10 because I was busy checking emails. And if Craig Peterson is still here, in addition to Agent RPM and Mother Mary visiting you later today from Plum City, Agent RPM and Bucky and myself will be at the ranch. And that's, for those of you who haven't seen the ranch, it's SELAHRANCH.com, SELAHranch.com. Selah is in the Bible many times in Psalm, and I think it means so be it, and some other interpretations. It looks like Craig Peterson and his daughter, Agent Aubrey, must have a canine friend, either in their house or nearby. What I want to read from you now, and it doesn't matter who sent this, some people know who sent it, but this came in today about 3 hours ago. And these are not my words, but these are powerful words, and I want to share them with you. This is not a quote, this is an email. For a righteous man abides with God, and God abides in him, and no evil shall overtake him, and no loss shall he suffer, but for his own good. Indeed, though it appears that the entire world is set against him, nothing shall stand against him. Let those who have done evil in the sight of God and not repented fear the day of his coming, and let all those who have hungered for peace and love rejoice, for these and all blessings shall be theirs in great abundance. In that eternal, this is hard to talk about, in that eternal moment field you shall be remembered and placed on high, and all your sufferings and trials and moments of bitter regret, moments of anguish and fear and dread will be as nothing, as less than the dry wind over the grass in autumn, when you see your part and share in what is to be, and you will not remember any loss or suffering anymore. You will not stand alone anymore. Even now you are becoming aware of the bright angels arrayed around you, the heavenly host of God's appointed, your true brothers and sisters who now surround you and sustain you. Let those of little faith look up and be inspired. The great warrior has come. In his mouth is truth, and in his heart justice. You have heard the words of God and hidden them in your heart. You will not be disappointed. That comes from somebody who is a very powerful ally of the United States of America, not the corporation, but the Republic. And it was one of the four, that party that sent me that message today was one of the four judges that created the True Bill. And the True Bill is a commercial lien for $279 trillion that was filed in Mesa County, Colorado on the 16th of October of 2015. Because of the gracious support of two dangerettes who care about me, I found out about this lien. I put my name on the lien, and I'm one of the claimants. And the beauty of this, unbeknownst to me at the time, is during the pendency of the claim, nobody from the United States Department of Justice on down to the courts, the judges, and the attorneys at a local level can lay a finger on me unless they cannot harass me, they cannot distract me, they cannot do anything to me unless I create a criminal offense against a human. However, my offenses are against corporations, for instance, the private for-profit courts in the United States of America. And I'm over here in England. Some would correct me and say United Kingdom. I don't give a rat's ass about that. I don't understand the difference. Well, I do, but I don't. But there's some bad things going on in England, and there was a court case yesterday involving Gordon Bowden and the abuses over the last several administrations here in the United Kingdom, Tony Blair and David Cameron for sure. According to those guys, there's 250 corporations that have their global headquarters at 788 to 790 Finchley Road in London. I put a picture of that address in today's radio show ad, and if anybody out there thinks you can put 250 CEOs in that building without it crumbling to the ground, let alone their staffs, I'd like to sell you some waterfront property and Sedona, Arizona. Okay, enough about me. I really appreciate the kind words that came from that judge today. They mean a great deal. And I was so fortunate that two of our dangerettes, who shall remain nameless, because Freeport Girl and Shangri-La don't need any NSA snoops dialing their number. But those two ladies were kind enough to put me in touch or make me aware of the four judges and the true bill. And so until January 16th, I've got a get out of jail or get out of court free card, and I've already played it once and it worked. And the beauty is, if the evil parties, which emanate from the United Kingdom, but they are in fact in the United States, the Department of Justice, the American Bar Association, the courts, the judges, and all the attorneys are basically rogue belligerents because they're operating courts for profit for the crown. That is a form of treason also. And I'll give my voice a rest, catch up with the chat room, and then I'll try to get a hold of David. I can't believe that he hasn't tried to get a hold of me. And maybe George Holdsworth could call David later and tell him the difference between turning his mic off and turning his Skype off. Let's see if I can get him. In Texas, we'll have somebody else doing all this type of stuff. Where did you go? Let's try this again. Turn your microphone on and tell us where you went.
I went and took the dog out.
I don't remember giving you permission, but anyway, you're back, so what do you want to talk about?
I've just about to slip in a picture, or I already have done, of our friend Kerry having a nice meal in Paris with her Bambi. And I'm just asking, I'll pop that in the chat room, Mensa, he's the genealogical expert, to check Kerry's ancestry on the mother's side, because it appears that they were trafficking or trading in opium in a joint venture with the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank Corporation in London, at least their head office there, run by Sir Ewan Cameron, the great-great-grandfather of the prick in number 10 Downing Street. So the Kerry fortune, I think we're going to find, is built on the opium trade with China, and it's tainted. One of the many reasons is because of the damage done by opium, which was a legal commodity back then. I think the Chinese emperor was desperately trying to stop it because basically the Brits, I think the worshipful company of apothecaries was basically decimating the Chinese population with this drug. And of course the Chinese want revenge, and I can't really do anything other than sympathize with them, and they're about to get it because Kerry is a traitor, and he's actually a member on the mother's side, I think that's a Scottish family, of this extraordinary alliance that is attacking, or has been attacking, England since 1495, the alliance between Scotland and the French. Where every opportunity they have, they try and destroy, decimate and disrupt what I suppose would pass as the Anglo-Saxon community. And legitimate Frenchmen and Scots who have come through many wars either together or against each other to reach the present, where there's an amazing opportunity for Kerry and his cronies to launch that final putsch, P-U-T-S-C-H, where they impose a carbon cap on the free world and the sovereign states, which gives them an opportunity to say to Obambi or the next president of the United States, sorry, you may want to deploy your lovely aircraft carriers and battle fleets, but when you send them off to battle, the planes that are flying off the deck are producing a dangerous level of carbon dioxide and we believe that you are contributing to catastrophic anthropogenic global warming, and you will violate the cap we set ourselves in Paris, that we're only going to allow industrialized countries to generate carbon dioxide up to the limit or cap, such that we don't have an increase in temperature above 2 degrees centigrade by 2050, which is absolute bullshit, because what these people who are not geochronologicalists, that is studied geochronological time, they will not apparently understand, or do not apparently understand, that there are two levels whereby the Earth's temperature is stable for millions, if not billions of years. One is 12 degrees, which is where we are now, which is pretty cold in the greater scheme of things, and the other is 24 degrees centigrade. And never in geological time, other than the end of the Carboniferous and the beginning of the Permian, have we had what we have at present, which is a minimum of temperature coinciding with a minimum of carbon dioxide, i.e. it's damn cold at the moment, and there's not a lot of carbon dioxide around. And my friend Tim Bell, who is a historical climatologist, has said, and I'm sure that piece of information can be verified, is the optimum carbon dioxide in a greenhouse, remember they talk about greenhouse gases, to improve growth conditions for a plant, is 2,000 parts per million. So we're facing starvation of the plant life on this planet because there's not enough carbon dioxide to get optimum growth of the plants on which our very survival exists. So Kerry is a traitor. He's an idiot. He was in Gothenburg at the Bilderberg conference, I think, field on the 29th of May of 2001, conspiring with his Bilderberg colleagues on a dress rehearsal for 911, which you and I know as Amalgam Virgo. Can you just quickly summarize why that was a dress rehearsal that proved to be very successful from the conspirators' point of view? Over to you.
Yes, my college classmate Chick Burlingame was an American Airlines captain, and he stayed in the Navy Reserves, and he rose to the rank of captain in the Navy Reserves. Two different types of captain, but they both wear 4 stripes, and they're both in charge of something. In his role at American, he was in charge of 757 airliners, including Flight 77 on 9/11, which is unfortunate for him. His birthday was the following day, 12 September of 2001, and as a birthday present to himself, he arranged to fly a trip that went from Washington National out to, or maybe it was Washington Dulles, it really doesn't matter. It was one of Washington's airports, nonstop out to Los Angeles, where he would then watch the Anaheim Angels baseball game the following day, the 12th of September. But as everyone in the world knows, he died on the 11th of September. I've been to his gravesite in Arlington several times. I find it remarkable that Arlington National Cemetery wanted to deny him the honor of being buried there by claiming he did not die in combat. Well, you can't have it both ways, you candy asses in D.C. You can't say that America was attacked by foreign people and then claim that Charles Burlingame didn't die at the hands of foreigners, which of course he did not. He died at the hands of the United States Senior Executive Service, the Crown Agents, the Vatican, McDonald Detweiler, Carlisle Canada, a bunch of corporations. 9/11 was a great corporation revenue generator, and not just corporations. G.H.W. Bush made $1 trillion of personal income on 9/11. And so I think that G.H.W. Bush and his offspring, they think that people are afraid of them. Well, think again, you twerps. Not everybody's afraid of you. There might be 3, 5, 7, 100, 500,000. The number grows every day of people who are not afraid of the Bushes, the Clintons, and the Sotoros, party of two, both with kickstands. On the morning of 9/11, the reason the corporations, including the United States Senior Executive Service, needed Burlingame to die is his job in the Navy Reserves towards the end of his career was, and let's just do the math to see when the career would have ended. I believe I know he got commissioned on the 9th of June of 1971, the same day I got commissioned at Annapolis. Whoop-de-doo, who gives a rat's ass? It's just math. And I believe he put in 28 years, so that would mean around June 8th of 1999, he retired. Well, he could have gone 30 years, I forgot, which would put it June 8th of 2001. Voila. The reason, just in case you're wondering if I'm slipping gears, no, I was thinking of 28 years, and that's for an 05 lieutenant colonel like myself. I didn't hang around for any more rank because I didn't like ranky officers. I didn't like what they did. I didn't like how they sell out enlisted men. I didn't like how they violate their oath, and I'm not impressed by a bunch of stars and fruit salad. For those of you who don't know what fruit salad means, somebody in the chat room will explain it. Chick Burlingame's job was to create wargaming scenarios, and he in fact created the war game by which a bunch of air-breathing aviation assets would be launched from the Gulf of Mexico and from Alaska, and they would converge in Washington, D.C. and New York City, and that was called Amalgam Virgo 01. It was practiced only on 2 days, June 1st and 2nd of 2001. And let me stop right there, because sometimes people think I have a good memory. No, I don't. I don't have a good memory at all. It's just that these facts don't change. And so going back now some 14 years, all I've had to remember is that June 1st and June 2nd of 2001, Amalgam Virgo 01 was practiced at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida, where a bunch of Canadians came down there, and they had the authority to shut down the North American air defense system from American participation. Someone might want to check my memory, but on the 20th of August of 1999, this is interesting, Major General Maurice Burrill from Canada signed an agreement with Henry Shelton, who had a degree in textiles from some flea-bite college in North Carolina. And Henry Shelton, who's a complete goon, as is proven by his willing to trade his oath for an OBE, Henry Textile Shelton and Maurice Seahorse Burrill signed an agreement on the 20th of August of 1999 that any time Canada said so, they could stand down the United States Air Force. Well, that's, we haven't learned a whole lot, have we? Because here yesterday, the USS Charles de Gaulle was put in charge of Task Force 50, which, if I understand stuff, and I'm not sure I want to understand this, it's called treason. I've seen enough of it. But to place U.S. Navy assets under French command is treason. And so I certainly hope nothing bad happens to the Charles de Gaulle on 12/12 of 15. But I can tell you that myself and some people who think like I do regarding the value of human life and the equality of global commoners around the world, we're going to be having a summit at the Gough Manor House in Crawley, England, and it may or may not be on Horsham Road. That could easily be Googled. And I don't want to tell you what time our meeting is at 2 p.m. because if I did that, maybe the gendarmes from Le Bourget would come over and wave their white flags and their pastel feather dusters at me, and I'd wave something at them too. It's something included in this batch. But anyway, on June 1 and 2, the Canadians practiced standing down the U.S. Air Force, and then about 90 days, maybe 100 days later, on September 11th of 2001, Maurice Burrill, Rick Finley, Charles Bouchard, Angus Watt, Russell Williams, and Robert Marr stood down the air defenses of the United States of America, and they attacked America. Let me say that real clearly. Canada attacked America on 9/11. I don't think Burrill understood what he was commanding, but it doesn't matter, does it? Because he was in command, and the captain of the ship goes down with the ship, and the 9/11 attack was captained by Maurice Burrill. Has he admitted that? Yes, to himself. How do I know that? Because he was given a cush job, just like all these boneheads are. If you participate in an attack against a neighbor or an ally, the reward is the corporate machine gives you a cush job where you have to do nothing all day for the rest of your life other than do Sudokus and eat bonbons and have an occasional San Miguel. Cheers. But on 9/11, it's unfortunate, but on 9/11, I recognized the hand of my sister since I gave her the idea of droning aircraft. I recognized the hand of the flying events over Langley Air Force Base and the Pentagon because three of my, not my classmates, but three of my squadron peers from the North Dakota Air National Guard were airborne over the Pentagon, Shanksville, and their names are Brad Derrig, Craig Bjorgstrom, and Dean Ekman. And after talking to them, I have found out what exactly happened on the morning of 9/11 when they were scrambled off Langley at 0932 as a flight of 3, which is impossible. It's impossible to scramble 3 F-16s because there's never 3 F-16 pilots on alert. Never, 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 never. So that means if they did in fact scramble 3, they had foreknowledge, or those controlling them had foreknowledge. By the way, not that it matters, but somebody in their chain of command was a homosexual. Who cares? Except for that's a pattern, because when they killed James Sabow on the morning of 22 January of 1991, it was under the command of at least 2 homosexuals, and I don't want to point the finger at everybody, so I'll just give you 3 names and you guys can sort it out for yourselves. But the top 3 people that signed off on the assassination of James Sabow were G.H.W. Bush, Jeb Bush, and General Al Gray from the United States Marine Corps. This has gone on long enough, David, so let me wrap it up by saying the people that perpetrated the attack on 9/11 against the United States of America didn't fool everybody. And in order to get away with it, they not only have to fool everybody, but they have to fool God. God's not that easily fooled, and God will not be mocked. And payback's coming, and payback's an MF. David, over to you.
Yeah, good for you, Phil. So I've just put up a image of a series of 1 original and 3 upgrades described as the original HEAD graphic. The first one is 2002, that's the original. First update is the HEAD graphic of 2004, second update is the HEAD graphic of 2010, third update is the HEAD graphic of 2011. And it basically demonstrates that John Kerry, operating 45 years after his treason in Paris when he negotiated with the Vietnamese communists to stand down the United States military in Vietnam, resulting in the deaths of thousands of South Vietnamese Catholics and thousands of members of the regular army, and creating a refugee storm that brought many, many good people and a few very bad people into the United States that he's talking out of the back of his rectum. Well, it didn't do him any good anyway. So the original HEAD graphic, I don't quite see what subtle changes took place in those 4 images, but let me just talk about the 4 points, because I think it's important for Abel Danger to understand why the Kerry position is so fraudulent. So if I take the third update of 2011, what it shows is, as I said before, that the temperature of the Earth basically oscillates in geochronological time, and of course we're talking about a huge length of time, millions of years ago. It oscillates between 2 temperatures, and if my tired old eyes read it correctly, it looks like the upper temperature is 25 degrees, and just eyeballing that, I would say about 70 or 80% of the time, going back to 600 million years ago, the temperature is at the elevated level of 25 degrees centigrade. There are a few occasions, actually, I look at, these are millions of years, where the temperature came down to, I think it's 10 degrees maybe, which is cold by their standards, a hell of a lot colder than 25 degrees centigrade. Now, only 2 of those periods was there a minimum of carbon dioxide with the minimum temperature, and that's at the end of the Carboniferous and the beginning of the Permian, and the present. So right now we have a minimum of carbon dioxide and a minimum of temperature, meaning that John Kerry, the treasonous John Kerry, is talking about it out of his idiosyncratic parasitical arse, pronounced the British way. I think Americans say ass.
Are you talking about a gluteus maximus?
Yeah, is that what it is?
Well, I think most Americans, if they want to say ass, they spell it O-B-A-M-A.
Yes, I think so, true. And that's a much travelled highway, I think, for Mr. Love, right?
Are you talking about Hershey Highway?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Now, let me go back to my understanding, and you jump in here, Field, and tell me where I'm wrong. As I understand it, a request for letters of marque and reprisal, such as reprising, that's a French word, taking back the French ship, the Charles de Gaulle, and all of the American technology on it, starts with an American citizen requesting his Congress person, man or woman, to submit to Congress a request, a formal request for letters of marque and reprisal, not necessarily, I believe, defining the particular asset to be taken back, but I think in our circumstances we can do that, and that will aid Congress in understanding what we're talking about, but defining who the enemy is as seen by Congress. So you have a Congress person that you can communicate with, and every Abel Danger American citizen has a Congress person. So my suggestion would be that you and I, and anyone else who knows how to do that sort of thing, draft up a proposal for Congress to provide you and the Abel Danger team with letters of marque and reprisal that would allow us to confiscate the French ship, the nuclear-powered Charles de Gaulle, on the grounds that it has on board equipment that was outsourced by Obambi in the White House, technically known as the Defense Red Switch Network, and normally going by an initialism. I think I taught you what an initialism was, Phil. A D for defense, R for red, S for switch, and N for network. Defense Red Switch Network. Now in 2009, and people can Google that, there is a picture of Obambi at the desk in the Oval Office with his lug clamped onto a Defense Red Switch Network phone known as an IST-2, apparently, interestingly enough, made by Raytheon, which is interesting, because on 911, I believe, Field, there were 5 Raytheon scientists, technical or engineer people who were killed, let's say murdered, on 911. So it would be very interesting if they were silenced.
Yes, they were.
Right. And Raytheon did something very interesting the year before, because at its factory or plant in Garland, Texas, the Raytheon personnel, or some personnel within Raytheon, hosted the dipping of the disc that contained Abel Danger's research into sleeper cells operating in the United States that would go on to form the false flag al-Qaeda attack. And apparently they dipped it in acid. Now that was General Henry Shelton's time, and he may be good, he may be bad, he may be incompetent. We don't have enough information for that. However, he should have revealed to the public at large the results of the research done by Abel Danger, spelled A-B-L-E, Danger, where there was a backup disk that has been transmitted to Abel Danger .net as far as I know, and it's up to them to prove that it wasn't. So I think there's a complete disk copy of all of the names that were brought into the United States to form the Abel Danger super teams by agents operating out of the National Visa Center, operated by your sister. So your sister brought in the sleeper cells. Your sister embedded those sleeper cells in the 8A companies that have been running since 1953 under the Dwight D. Eisenhower administration, where a major defense contractor such as Boeing were forced into a set-aside arrangement, which must have made their teeth really grind their teeth in rage, because there would be many capable, honourable and patriotic Americans working for Boeing. Now, one of the people that wasn't patriotic and honourable was the grandmother of Abambi. Toots, I think they called her. And it was necessary. She was working on the production line up in Washington State and sabotaging the production line in the Second World War. She eventually ended up as the Queen of Escrow in Hawaii, which incidentally became a hub zone in its own right. And Abambi and his, what should we call it? What do we call his wife?
Beard. Beard.
Yeah, the Beard. They trotted off to Hawaii, I think about the time of the first election of Obama, because...
Can I correct you, David?
Yeah.
Obambi's beard does not trot. She's more like a canter, or I'm not sure what hippopotamuses do. I don't think they trot. I think they sort of lumber along in a slothful manner. Not to correct you, O erudite one.
Okay, no sweat, feel right. To err is human and forgive divine, so it works both ways, right?
Well, it works one way.
Okay. Alright, so now what we have is this extraordinary situation where Field's sister is able to embed sleeper cells, whether they represent the Taliban, Black September terrorist group, the Red Brigade, al-Qaeda, or ISIS, in various groups around America's major cities, and equip them with ammunition caches in the so-called hub zones. And the hub zones were launched by John Kerry when he was chairman of the Small Business Senate Committee, or the Senate Small Business Committee, in a treasonous conspiracy with Field's sister, when she was the chief operating officer of the Small Business Administration and had control of a loan portfolio that represented, I think, about $50 to $60 billion of taxpayer guaranteed debt provided through 7,000 banks to these companies that are owned by women or blacks or people disadvantaged by virtue of their ethnic origin. So who in the United States of America around the time of 9/11 might fall into the category of someone disadvantaged by their ethnic origin as opposed to their sex? Well, how about Norman Mineta? Japanese, interned with his family during the Second World War. He evolves into, or is ultimately promoted or maneuvered into the position of Secretary or Transportation Secretary. And he's held over from the treasonous Clinton regime and slides his slimy way into the Bush administration and continues to do what he was doing before, which is prepare the bureaucrats, if you will, in the Department of Transportation for an attempted overthrow of the United States government by force, where a whole bunch of people come into a crime scene or are transported into a crime scene across state boundaries or from overseas, and are in position and track in position before the attacks in New York and in outside Shanksville and in Washington DC. Now Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, there were two aircraft carriers deployed for the attempt to overthrow the government of the United States, and I believe they were communicating over the Red Switch network with the Charles de Gaulle. Can you just tell listeners why, if you agree with me, those two aircraft carriers might have played a role in the 911 attack, and what kind of assets they would have had to make it stick? Over to you.
Are you talking about the Washington and the Eisenhower?
Yes.
I'm having a bad hair day and my glasses keep slipping down to the end of my nose because somebody told me to do that, and I always do what I'm told. But I'll answer your question as soon as I give a brief advertisement from our sponsor, the Dairy Palace in Canton, Texas. They're open 24/7, 365. They have a varied menu, varied. And if you happen to be anywhere near Crawley, England, that's on Horsham Road, and it's near the Gatwick Airport in Crawley. It's the Gough Manor House, and I don't want you to read the small print, but on the back of this Dairy Palace bumper sticker, which says Highway 19 at I-20 at Canton, Texas, it says this: take a picture of a Dairy Palace bumper sticker in an unusual location or on an unusual vehicle. Email it to dairypalace@etcable.net. Include your address and permission to place your name and picture on our website and advertisements without any compensation whatsoever. Winners will be sent a gift. Well, guess what? I'm going to email them this picture that is taken by somebody other than me, because I'm going to be in the center of the field of view. Any of the other super secret agents will probably have 300 of them, give or take 294. But any of the other agents that want to appear in the pictures will certainly be encouraged. And what we'll do, I got to remember which sticker. It's this sticker. We'll have to put this maybe under the windshield wiper, or maybe if we're clever enough to remember to take some Scotch tape, we can tape it to the back window or the back bumper of the most unusual vehicle that one of us is operating. It could be that Vanishing Point has a van that would suit that purpose. It could be a yellow Subaru. We all live in a yellow Subaru, a yellow Subaru. Anyway, David, there's a method to my madness. And see, this is called free advertising on a global scale, because these bumper stickers will be photographed on Saturday. Notice I didn't say prior to 2 p.m. or after 3:30 p.m. because we have to maintain our cover, hence my wig. But we're going to get some pictures taken. Then we're going to send them that same day to the Dairy Palace, and I'd be very surprised if they don't publish them, because how many Dairy Palace bumper stickers could ever have found their way to Crawley on Horsham Road in the UK? So your question was something, and I believe it was, what's the significance of, on 9/11, there being 3 aircraft carriers that are cross-talking, those being the George Washington, and whoever the skipper of the George Washington was, shortly after 9/11 he got a big promotion. Gee, I wonder why. According to Putin, the reason why would be the fact he launched 2 A-3 Sky Warriors off the USS George Washington, which was just east of New York City, probably just about far enough so the curvature of the earth, which some people don't understand yet, where the people on the East Coast would not be able to visually see the A-3s getting fired off. Both of these A-3 Sky Warriors would have been super modified at Fort Collins, Loveland, Colorado, by Darryl Skurich, Darryl Skurich. And some of the modifications of those aircraft would be total droning with Global Hawk technology, engine upgrades, strengthening of the wings so that it could fly the profile that was flown and recorded on 9/11, Avionics would have been upgraded. Weapon systems would have been upgraded to carry an AGM-65 or an AGM-28 or an AGM something or other. Whatever it needs to be a bunker buster to open a round hole 16 feet in the Pentagon so that when the A-3 Sky Warrior is vaporized with Smaxonic, the remains would be destroyed, vaporized, and they would follow the Raytheon bunker buster type missile right through the hole. Now it could have been a German missile, M-I-S-T-A-L, or is it M-I-S-T-R-A-L? Somebody will Google that and tell us. But there's a German missile that could have breached that hole too. But what did not breach the hole was Captain Chick Burlingame's 757, because had he hit that hole with a 757, the empennage, the wings, and the engines would have been outside of the hole, or there would have been damage to the facade of the Pentagon where the wings, the engines, and the empennage penetrated with the rest of the fuselage. So what I'm basically saying is the official version of the 9/11 story involving Chick Burlingame and a 757 breaching Wedge 1 of the Pentagon less than 1 hour after it opened, after my sister and AMAC finished the PenRen, which is the Pentagon renovation. The media story is absolute bullshit. Now in Texas, that's not considered speaking rudely. And Texas, as you probably all know, has just signed open carry effective January 1st. And of course, sometime in early January, or maybe mid or later January, I don't know. It depends on next week's meeting in Mount Vernon, Texas, with the people that own the Sailor Ranch. Once again, if you've not seen the ranch, www.SELAHRANCH.com, sailorranch.com, and this is the ranch that we're going to operate for a finite period, and then during that period we're anticipating getting funds sufficient to buy it and then operate it into perpetuity for not only veterans of the United States of America, but veterans of all the allies and opponents of the United States of America. And our goals will be to honor veterans, to honor the constitutional republic of the United States, first and foremost to honor God. And there are people that to this day said, Field, how can you talk about honoring God the way you write? Well, let me just tell you something. That's what he told me to do. He said expose evil. He didn't give me a handbook of how to do it, and he turned me loose. And I think after 9 years, which reminds me, David, our anniversary was 3 days ago on the 6th, which was Sunday. So we've been doing this 9 years, I would say not with impunity. The weaponized IRS is trying to nip at my heels, but I gave them a giant middle digit when I signed on with the the true bill, which you can find by Googling SEC, as in Securities Exchange Commission, SEC Tracer, TRACER 2640220. David, what the 3 aircraft carriers, the Charles de Gaulle, the Eisenhower, which was cooled down, which means the engines were shut down, it was in rehab. They don't call it that for ships, they call it retrofit. But it was in heavy maintenance. It was tied up in Norfolk, and the people that may have been in the brig could have been out of the brig and in the CIC, Combat Information Center, communicating with both the Charles de Gaulle, which would have been operating for the benefit of the Auld Lang Alliance, which is between Scotland and France to the detriment of England. And I just need to point out right now that several years ago, England, the Royal Navy, was trying to impress the French, which is impossible because they're brain dead. And they had their greatest, at that time, the most sophisticated submarine, the HSM Astute. And here comes the reminder that you can't make this stuff up. Anyway, the conning officer and the commanding officer of the HMS Astute asked the 2 French naval officers on board if they would like to have a go at steering the Astute. And so they turned over the steering of the ship to the French naval officers, and they promptly ran it aground. Well, using that as a template, what do you think would happen if somebody in the United Kingdom or Israel or Syria or Russia wanted to pay back France for running the HMS Astute aground. Yes, you guessed it. What might happen is on 12/12 of 15, the Charles de Gaulle could take a sunburn or two, some very low-flying, fast-moving missiles capable of taking down ships like the Charles de Gaulle. And of course, if Charles de Gaulle the ship is like Charles de Gaulle the human, there's so much hot air in there that probably the explosives aboard the Sunburns and above the A2 M3s or whatever those torpedoes are, the torpedoes I allude to are the ones carried by the Israeli submarines of the Dolphin class, which includes the Leviathan. I'm not smart enough to know what Leviathan means, but I'll just take a random guess that it means whale. Where have we seen whale before in this never-ending history of deceit? Well, in Vietnam, General Westmoreland, who was there simply to make sure the flow of drugs came from the Golden Triangle, his personal aircraft was a C-123K. It was called the White Whale, and it was called the White Whale because it was a big fat pig, no reference to Michelle Obama. But the White Whale was called the White Whale because it was fairly big transport aircraft, and because it's hot over there in Vietnam and generals don't like to get sweat rings under their shirts, under their armpits, looks too manly, and these guys are a bunch of sissies typically. Case in point, Alexander Haig, who was also in Vietnam, by the way. The guy that sent me to the Naval Academy, Hunter H. Harris IV, was also one of these sissies. He had short man complex, and he tried to drink himself taller with gin. How do I know that? Because I used to smell it on him. My father worked for him, and I met the guy, and he feloniously got me into the Naval Academy, which I have to say was an act of, well, it's probably a felony on his part, but he's dead, long since dead, LSD. But I would say what motivated Hunter H. Harris and his aide, Lieutenant Colonel James Jones, into writing up fraudulent recommendations for me to be allowed to get into the Naval Academy class of 71. Probably God inspired them to do this bad thing, because God knew that 34 years down the road I'd do something, for God himself and for the United States of America and for the global people. We global commoners, we're all equal regardless of John Kerry and Hillary Clinton think. Those people are a bunch of fat oafs. They don't know their ass from third base. And over to you, David.
Great stuff, Viv. Are we going to win?
I know we're going to win. It's been ordained.
Okay, so there's an article about the decision by Churchill to sink the French fleet, which I think has triggered the T in the initialism SPECTRE, which stands for Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, and Extortion. And that's through the vehicle of the script writers for the Bond movies. They go back to, I think the first was around the year that Kennedy was shot, 1963. And it's my belief that what they're trying to do is warn anyone who's awake in the United States of America, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, of course they're allies around the world, of what's in store. So on June the 24th, that's 1940, France and Germany signed an armistice. Part of that agreement was the French could keep their ships, but Germany would gain control over items such as passports and tickets. Isn't that interesting? The enemy got control over the passport office, just like the enemy has control over Serco's operation at the National Visa Center prior to readjusting the legend associated with barriers for terror. Hitler treaded lightly concerning the ships and did not push for full ownership. He feared such aggression would inspire the French to keep fighting. I don't think so. Hitler's concerns were not known to England. Now, isn't that interesting? I bet you Vichy France was patronized and supported by Pierre Trudeau, the father of this little guy Justin, who's prancing around pretending to be Prime Minister of Canada. I bet Pierre Trudeau knew exactly what the Vichy France was going to do. Well, in fact, I believe Churchill intercepted a message that Vichy France was sending reinforcements to protect the French fleet. However, on July the 1st, 1940, Churchill was finally able to get the backing of the War Cabinet to sink the ships if they would not be surrendered. On July the 3rd, the British surrounded the French fleet at the port of Mers el-Kebir, right outside Oran in Algeria. Churchill's message was clear. Sail to Britain, sail to the USA, or scuttle your ships in the next 6 hours. At first, the French refused to speak to negotiators. 2 hours later, the French showed the British an order they had received from Admiral Darlan, instructing them to sail the ships to the USA if the Germans broke the armistice and demanded the ships. Meanwhile, the British intercepted a message from the Vichy government ordering French reinforcements to move urgently to Iran. Churchill was done playing games and ordered the attack to his commanders. Settle everything before dark, or you will have reinforcements to deal with. An hour and a half later, the British fleet attacked. In less than 10 minutes, 1,297 French soldiers were dead, and 3 battleships were sunk. 1 battleship and 5 destroyers managed to escape. The question for Americans today is, they did. I think they were rebadged by the Germans and used to attack the Royal Navy and civilian shipping across the Atlantic, resulting in the deaths of thousands of innocent people. So what I'm inviting Field to do, I think he's the only person with the Abel Danger team behind him to be in a position to make the same kind of threat. Well, Field is not the President of the United States. In many ways, he's more powerful than the President of the United States because he has the truth as his agent.
His buckle.
So why wouldn't Abel Danger demand of the congressmen associated with Abel Danger members, and I've got an idea about what an Abel Danger member might look like to propose to Field, which I'll explain in a minute, demand of their Congress to submit Field McConnell's letter requesting the letters of Marque and Reprisal, and get the American public, the great American public, to bring that into the court of public opinion and have every candidate, whether Democrat or Republican, running for office, to debate that in the days to come. And it's a very simple saying, because with that you decapitate the enemy. You bring the ship over to the United States, then have what's left, if it's not totally oxymoronic, the Marine Corps intelligence activity. Go through that ship and see if there's any technology or any device relating to encryption that would normally protect communications by the National Command Authority, headed by the President of the United States, with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph Dunford, and the 4 heads of the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and the Army, and I believe the reserves. I'm not sure about the Coast Guard field. Right? If there's any of the information or exchanges that should have been kept secret, that have been transferred to the French, then those people who are participating in that conspiracy should be treated as unlawful conspirators, put before a military tribunal, and taken out if they're found guilty, shot. End of story. Then America has, probably built on its own blood and expense, takes possession of a relatively antique nuclear-powered carrier, but with all of the latest modern technology, including the latest incarnations of the Defense Red Switch network. And it's all over for the it's all over for the bad guys, and you can then bleach or cleanse the traitors out of the system. So that's my proposal to you, Field. What do you think? Over to you.
I think it matters not what I think, but what the chat room thinks. Somebody in the chat room just said, Trump UK ban petition passes 300,000 signatures. And that's from Afterburner in Brighton. Apparently she may have put up a link. Field has good UK host. Somebody keeps filling up his glass off camera for him. Well, George, let me show you something that even if I had to do it myself, here's the glass. Oh, that's a great song from the 50s. It's called There Stands the Glass. And my voice is coming back, so I'll just give you the first stanza. And maybe somebody who, like Texas Maverick, who likes Western music as much as I do, maybe she'll be able to tell us all who sang this great song from the 50s. Yeah, somebody give me a B flat. Okay, thank you. Here's how the song goes. There stands the glass, fill it up to the brim. Don't let loneliness in. It's my 23rd of the day. There stands the glass. Let's have Obama's ass with a side portion of Cammy Poo and Hillary too. Okay, who sang that song? There Stands the Glass. And what it's about is somebody that's loved and lost, and so he thinks that he can drown his sorrows, when actually you can't. You just compound your sorrows. Because, yeah, she's still gone, and tomorrow morning you have a headache and no money left. That's sort of how it goes, which was a song by Johnny Rodriguez, which you may remember from about 1976. Give me a middle C. There we go. That's the way love goes, babe. That's the music God made for the entire world to sing. It never gets old, no, it only grows. Anyway, enough singing. Doug McDime, who's a super quadruple secret agent working for Mossad, MI6, BFD, and IUD, tells me that his belt buckle arrived today at his brother's place in the UK, and that his brother's going to Cyprus on Friday. And so I would like to ask Agent McDime, notice for the record I didn't say Doug McNichol, because I never blow anyone's cover. Oh, Webb Pierce had that song. Thank you, Maranatha. That's a great song. Anyway, this belt buckle going to Cyprus, Agent McDime, if you could get a picture either with you wearing the belt buckle or holding the belt buckle in some place that's obviously in Cyprus, that might be very useful for one of our radio shows next week, which I'm glad I talked about, because David, next week on Monday I'm going to be flying, and before you get upset that I'll be flying on a show day, I'll be flying with a book called Sterling's Men, which I'm about 50 pages into, and it's very good because it talks about your friend Jacques Luz and David Sterling and a bunch of other people. And believe me, they got decimated early on due to trying to do some things that hadn't been done before by Brits. And on one of their first raids, they suffered about a 70% fatality rate.